Hey everyone, evening. TDR Traded Black podcast on the Benjamin A Television Network coming to you nighttime style. Why? It's busy week. Earnings latest. Curaleaf. Terassend continues the momentum, and a lot of retail investors looking at Canopy Growth. What'd you guys think? Did you like the latest earnings report? What were some of the highlights that you noticed? What are some of the big takeaways in today's earnings calls? Because there's a lot to unpack. So without further ado, let's dive into it, because this is the reason that you should be watching this podcast today, to get insights on who we think had some good reports, who were stable, and what we can anticipate moving forward. All right, let's welcome in the gents. TDR financial writer Benjamin A. Smith, along with TDR millennial entrepreneur Anthony Varrell. Good to see you guys. I know it's been an exhausting day. Guys, tired?
I'm good. I just listened to an hour and a half of earnings calls. It was riveting to say the least.
Yeah, Ben, how you making out? You surviving,
Glad I
brother?
got to end with the Terassend crew.
Yeah, it's been a day. Writing articles, doing some market stuff, doing a couple podcasts. It's been a full day.
Yeah, very full day. So again, off the top, the reasons why we want people to listen to this podcast, we're going to dive in deep to some of the biggest companies in the space released earnings here after the bell. So let's begin into the wire here on the TDR Traded Black podcast on the Benjamin Television Network. And we begin with Terassend. They recorded, Anthony, their 8th consecutive quarter of sequential net revenue growth and 5th consecutive quarter of positive cash flow from continuing operations. Also improved the number 2 in New Jersey. And most importantly, that I think you were saying before we got started, Michigan is proving to be a vital state for this business operation. You want to explain further?
Yep. So I got to give Jason and Ziad a round of applause. Numbers look good. Growth is double digits across the board. Margins are healthy. They're doing exactly what they told everybody they're going to do.
Yep.
They're going out there, they're building a cannabis company, and they're building a cannabis company that's built to make money. I listened to the conference call top to bottom. Major highlights were the theme is going wider and deeper in markets that they're currently in.
Yeah.
Most notably New Jersey and Michigan. Ziad alluded to Michigan one day being the biggest moneymaker in the portfolio, potentially.
That's huge.
And that is huge. They're also not balking at the fact of looking at other markets for expansionary purposes, such as Ohio. They like Ohio. I'm sure they like Florida as well. Jason also alluded to a Terassend post Schedule 3 plan as it relates to Terassend.
What do you mean by that?
He actually was mimicking the sentiment that Dan Aarons was, that we could get some sort of Schedule 3 reform here, or at least an acceptance of the recommendation by the DEA by year's end. If so, then that fundamentally changes the business. That allows them to leverage more of the free cash that's being generated and then go out there and they can do M&A. I mean, I do firmly believe that at some point in time within the next calendar year, they're going to make moves into going deeper into Michigan on the retail side. Ziad's told us that at Investor Day.
Yeah.
He's broadcasted it several times. I believe him when he says he's going to do something. New Jersey, they want to go into at least 7 social equity retail stores and get in there. So, I mean, they're looking to fortify their positions that they're already in and move up the polls in the markets that they're in. Quarter was great. One thing that really stood out to me was on the Canopy Growth call. David Klein referred to them as their assets in the United States in regards to Canopy, and part of the puzzle, a piece of the puzzle to the United States on the earnings call. Obviously, there are some similar investors. There's some similar investors in both enterprises. I mean, they've had ties to each other. I said this probably a year ago that if Canopy does enter the U.S. via Canopy USA, I see Terassend on their hit list of assets that they would acquire outside of what they already own with Jetty, Wana, acreage, etc. We can get into that when we get to the Canopy coverage. But all in all, it was good. It was a good quarter for Terassend. If there was one thing that caught my eye that I would say is flat to negative, and I don't want to call it negative, they guided for the quarter for Q4, and it's flat quarter over quarter in terms of growth.
Did they say why?
Discounting, seasonality. Keep in mind, though, these guys have raised guidance. These guys have raised guidance on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
So I think that if they do hit the numbers or they do have a plan, they will raise and show growth quarter over quarter. But yeah, it's 89.2. And then if you guide into that number that they gave a couple of weeks ago, it then shows, where is it in my numbers? I'm all over the place here. It's about 89.4. I'm pretty sure they're guiding for Q4.
Okay. You get the sense with them, it's under promise, over delivered. They keep things realistic, but I like the line that you said, a cannabis company set out to make money, which why we're here in the first place, right?
That's it. And they've done everything they've told us they were going to do.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I know you guys were going back and forth on earnings calls. Ben, you were sitting on one, Anthony, you're sitting in the other. Did you get a chance to review any of these numbers with regards to Terassend, Ben?
I do. Well, mostly on the top line. I haven't dug into the whole report filed on CDAR or anything like that. But this is one of the strongest reports that I've personally seen. Net revenue was up a lot sequentially. Obviously, the effects of Maryland there helping the numbers. But things like gross margin, that's up 340 basis points, which is a big move. Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's not a given for, some of the other companies in the sector. Adjusted EBITDA doubled. Net cash from operations that went up materially as well. So the big thing is growth, right? The growth on the top line. And that's not a given with what we've seen from TrueLeaf, what we've seen from Curaleaf. No. Those numbers actually fell on a sequential basis, and Terassend rose by a good, probably, close to 12-13%, top of my head. So very good performance, and one of the strongest reports I've seen so far.
Interesting. Bold statement, to say the least. Jordan White, you guys touch on Nova Cannabis posting net earnings of Canadian $2.1 million. I bring that up because I think SNDL has a big investment in that company. If I'm correct, I think they
we'll be covering that with Zach George. We didn't go over the report. I don't know anything about the report. I'm not going to pretend I do. Yeah. But that will be in the cards for the interview with Zach George. It'll be coming out on Monday.
Yeah, SNDL is their largest shareholder, 35 million shares. But okay, next up, let's start. Probably the biggest company that most retail investors keep their eye on, Ben, is Canopy Growth, and all eyes on them. To be transparent, there are some challenges, I think, again, with this latest earnings, but there's also some good highlights too. But a lot of this focus was about the U.S. There's so much unknown, which is creating so much interest and speculation regarding this company. But first things first, what was the takeaway from their latest earnings?
I look at this, and when I read the report, I think it's a company in transition, a company trying to right-size their balance sheet and their operations to optimize the assets that they have, right? It's not, if you just look at the straight numbers and you look at, the net loss and you look at the declining revenue profile, it's could be a little scary, to be honest, but you have to put this in the context of their right sizing their business, divesting BioSteel, trying to reducing debt. And that was one of the big positives. They reduced debt by overall debt by $364 million in the second quarter. So they're paying debt down and fundamentally they're trying to right size their business. So I think it's there's a company in transition. You have to sort of go past the numbers to get the context. And the Hershey operations, they sold that, and that generated over 150 million in cash. So they're trying to get everything in order, and of course they have those big a portfolio of U.S. assets, which is really going to help them down the road. So if you're able to sort of look past these, quarterly statements and look at what they have and looking at them as being, transitioning to a better future, then there's hope for optimism here.
Yeah. If you guys had to look into your crystal ball and look way out on what this company looks like, and again, being all the guy that likes to just put certain scenarios and speculations, and we look long-term in the future, but what is the ideal possibility look at what this company looks like when the U.S. does indeed get some sort of movement in legislation? What does that look like?
They execute on Canopy USA, they consolidate the P&Ls. And I think you see a considerably healthier business. They guided to be EBITDA positive by the end of 2024 on the call. So, I think that's realistic. They dropped SG&A by around 32 million quarter over quarter, year over year sequentially. Down 32 million from quarter over quarter. They dropped SG&A 32 million. They retired debt to the tune of, where's my notes? They retired debt by 364 million, bringing their net debt to 681. I mentioned that on the spaces this morning. One of the main things I was going to be looking for is how did they take out and what did they take out from that 1.05 billion in debt? They retired a nice chunk of it. I mean, almost 36% of it. That's a formidable amount. They're delivering on cost reductions. They still had a pretty large loss for the quarter. All things considered, the Canadian business has grown organically quarter over quarter for the third consecutive quarter. But I think they execute their strategy. They've got Wana, they've got Jetty, they've got Acreage, they've got Stores and Bickle, which is a picks and shovels play. They could go after Slang. They could go after TerrAscend. There's assets out there. And I mean, if they really do get their claws into the States and it's somewhere where they can freely operate with the power of Constellation behind them, sky's the limit for Canopy. They got about $270 million in cash as of the end of the quarter too, by the way.
This company's in a unique situation. Let's face it, deploying capital was just going left, right, and center with the previous administration. But if you had to look, as I said before, unique, this is a lot different than any other company in the space. But if you had to look at this lady's report, do you get the feeling that they're riding the ship and heading in the right direction, even though it's not perfect on paper?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're absolutely riding the ship. They're making and taking the steps to become what I firmly believe they're going to become.
Ben, you agree?
I've gotten shit for it. I'll keep saying it. I do firmly believe that Canopy will be a formidable player in the U.S. cannabis space.
Yeah.
I do agree with that because it seems like their strategy is to really, keep their best assets and try to reduce the cash burn long enough so that everything unlocks regulatory wise in the U.S. and then they can consolidate the P&Ls from their U.S. assets and hopefully, turn the ship around. So, you could argue that maybe, some of this cost-cutting measures and so forth has come a little late, but they're doing it now and they are showing improvement in terms of, less cash burn, less, losses, and they're trying to, save money going forward, and that's going to help them. Can they survive long enough? I think they can because, obviously they don't want to raise money down here and, they don't want to have to issue more debt at these prices as well. But, I think that they're going to make it because they have that brand they have that brand name and everybody knows who Canopy is. And, that's a huge benefit for them.
I mean, this was an illegal drug when Canopy came out. I mean, it wasn't even legal in Canada yet. They were very early. Constellation happened to deploy that capital far too early. I do agree with Ben, though, that I think that they're going to come out of this alive.
I saw you smirk when Ben said they're a little late with some of the moves. What were you smirking about?
I was just thinking what I would do with $5 billion from an M&A perspective, looking at the United States. I mean, it'd be an M&A wet dream. I mean, you could literally come in and buy whatever you wanted, like all the quality assets and all the best markets, consolidate them up and have probably the strongest MSO coast to coast. But I mean, that ship sailed.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about that far though. Like, back then, pre-Canadian legalization, then obviously there was the dream that things would unlock a lot, sooner than they would in Europe and maybe even in the US. And it was based on that assumption of building a global cannabis company. So I understand why Bruce and why management did what they did. It just the whole, divesting that when it became clear that, things wouldn't move in the US as fast or in Europe as fast as, people perhaps thought. And take Canada's lead, maybe there was, a little bit of time trying to hang on to stuff, and they were hemorrhaging a lot of money for a while. But now that's water under the bridge, and it's been several quarters since they've tried these cost-cutting maneuvers, and now things are finally starting to go in the right direction. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to go, but let's hopefully then get the free cash flow, somewhere in the black in over the next 3-4 quarters, and then we're talking here. It's still negative 67 million for the quarter, which is still way too much. But fortunately, they do have some cash cushion if they can narrow those losses in the future going for the quarter.
Yeah,
gents, we're gonna probably have a surprise guest coming on in about 2 minutes. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but we will go in to Curaleaf earnings. They're next. Arguably,
I'm assuming it's not going to be Boris Jordan.
It's not. It's a familiar face to the podcast who likes
Matt,
to come
Jay. Jason?
Yeah.
Jason,
So-
he had time for us?
I think he's texting me right now. I just sent him the link. So he says he's got about 5 minutes. So we'll see if he logs on. But
Cool.
yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Canopy, arguably the largest company in the world, whose net revenue came in at $333.2 million. Anthony, walk us through on what you heard. And again, some notable names, or shouldn't say notable numbers regarding the latest earnings.
So there's a lot of posturing. A lot of Boris kind of giving forward-leaning statements on safer. The strongest statement that I heard from him was he said that he anticipates in the next 3 to 5 years that there is more growth and more revenue coming out of the UK and Germany than out of the States for Curaleaf. I don't know how they get there that quickly. They're very small right now in terms of revenue, but they are growing. I think their UK business grew about 70% quarter over quarter. And the operational highlights, what I did like was that they're executing in Poland, they're executing in the UK, they're executing in Germany. They're anticipating being a pretty large player in the German medical market. They also don't think that the social clubs are going to affect them by any means, as they're not-for-profit organizations, and they're going to be really for the ground-up consumers that are in Germany. That being said, you can't – I mean, I got a ton of flack on Twitter about people who are like, oh, Curaleaf's loss for the quarter, which, I mean, it was big. I think it was $67 million.
Yep.
As far as the loss goes, they've got about $118 million in cash left on the balance sheet. That's a decent number, all things considered, but I don't think you can really turn away from they've cracked $1 billion in revenue year to date. That's something of merit.
It's a big number.
That being said, I would like to be seeing the operational expertise of GTI deployed into this business. Being able to generate that much revenue, I don't want to say it's easy, but generating the profit is the hard part. They've got to get this cannabis machine that they've built fine-tuned and generating profit.
Yeah.
If and when they do, and you see 280E drop, you could still argue that the valuation right now from a fundamental perspective is overvalued. I don't know why you'd pay what you'd pay for Curaleaf when you can get the same value in some other names. But at the same time, like, this is the 800-pound gorilla. Like, they've cracked, I think it was 1.014 billion for the 9 months year to date.
Yeah.
It's, for me, that's impressive.
It's big numbers, to say the least.
Yeah. Their margins, by the way, are what's the cause for concern.
I might have missed that, but what did he say timeline wise with regards to Germany?
Next 3 to 5 years, expects it to outpace the States in terms of growth.
And what about the vote, or what's refresh my memory?
The vote for adult use in Germany should be voted upon by the end of the year. But I mean, we've been around circles. We've been running around in circles in regards to Germany for years now. So it's I don't want to say it's the same old, but they are firing on all cylinders, it seems, in the EU. And part of what I have liked about their story is the fact that they have the leverage from the EU, and it's very unique to Curaleaf.
All right. Our surprise guest is here. Mitch, producer, Jason Wild from Terassend is coming up right now. Good to see you, sir. How's things?
What's up?
What's up? How's it going? How you guys doing?
Good call. I was on it from end to end.
I think the better question is how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I feel we're obviously, if you listen to the call, we're pretty pumped. And the call went fast. I felt like it was like I don't know, I felt a lot shorter than ones in the past. But and even our scripted stuff was a lot shorter. We noticed like our scripted part was like 22 minutes versus a few quarters ago it was like almost 50 minutes.
Right.
But I feel like there was less explaining to do and more just like numbers and fundamental.
Let the numbers do the talking.
Yeah. I think Anthony and I were part of your investor day at the TSX a couple of weeks ago. It might have been a month ago, worst time go. But I think the big takeaway that we got at an investor day was both the outline that some of your team mentioned about the Northeast region, New Jersey and Michigan. Yep. And these numbers that you outlined
cutting off my
today.
Connection. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry.
No, all good. Can you hear it?
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to do Ziad and Keith are doing a follow-up call with one of the analysts. You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. He's
Let me move somewhere else.
Guys down in
They're
Florida.
saying that I'm being too loud.
I'm assuming they're in Miami.
Yeah. I'm at my house in Florida, and I went to sit outside, and Z had closed this sliding glass door, which cut off my Wi-Fi connection.
Gotcha. As I was saying,
okay, here I'm sitting in my son's room.
the investor day that we attended at the TSX in Toronto, Canada, about a month ago. We really were impressed with some of the presentations that your team made with regards to the Northeast region, more specifically New Jersey, and then as well Michigan. And with this latest report, it really backs up where the focus is. You moved to number 2 in New Jersey, and Anthony was actually mentioning before you got on that Michigan is going to be probably your centerpiece of your business model moving forward, which is, big numbers to say the least.
Yeah, it certainly, Michigan certainly could be. There's just as we've talked about, and I think we said on at the investor day too, there's, we get it right in Michigan, and we've been getting it right more recently. Like, it's unlimited. We could have 200 stores, and there are a ton of struggling mom and pop stores that are out there. You drop them in, you can buy them at a good multiple, you streamline them, you go verticalize them with your own stuff. Generally we don't have huge market share with our wholesale brands in Michigan and in other stores, mainly because we mostly never had enough supply to supply. We had so much demand from our own 19 stores or so. But you go buy these things at a good multiple and then make them more vertical and drive even more profitability, and then the OpEx gets to be spread across all of those stores. So we think it could be a huge revenue number and a huge amount of gross profit and profitability, and others seem to be leaving Michigan. I mean, it was always more of a mom and pop state, but it seems like nobody's rushing to come in and create any competitive tension with us in terms of looking to buy things.
Yeah, one of the questions that we got was quarter over quarter. I mean, it looked like the guide for Q4 was kind of flat from Q3. Is that seasonality and discounting, or are you guys looking to probably let it settle in and then raise guidance going into Q4?
As you know, we were one of the first ones to pull guidance a few years ago, back in the summer of 21. And most companies weren't giving guidance back then either. But this August or so, we felt comfortable enough, and we felt like we had made enough progress and had our business predictable enough that we could reinitiate guidance once again. I think we've raised it twice since then. And what we've said consistently over the last few months is we want to put out a lot of shit has a lot of shit has gone wrong, or in terms of Murphy's Law over the last few years, and we just want to make sure that whatever numbers we put out there, that we feel super comfortable that even if a couple of things didn't go our way, that we were still going to hit those numbers. So I would say that that's really the driver of it. I think Ziad said something on the call, like when somebody asked him, if you bet him a cheesecake, whether it was going to be flat or up, he would bet it. He'd bet on this team to drive up revenues and profitability.
So again, now, Jason, one thing you notice when you look at the report is on the top line, 89.2 million compared to 72.1 million sequentially. Obviously, that's an impressive number. Some of the competitors in the tier 1 space, they're not necessarily even growing revenue sequentially. So obviously, a lot of it might be Maryland because you're heavily leveraged to that, and you're a little bit smaller in size. But what is the secret to growing over double-digit sequential revenue growth when others are not necessarily doing that?
Yeah, and not just double-digit. I think our sequential growth was 24 and change percent. Our business grew by almost a quarter sequentially. And the thing that I'm the most proud of is that if you look at our operating expenses, I'm not talking, our operating expenses as a percentage of revenue went down to 30 point something. We had originally said back in August that we would exit the year down at 30% OpEx, but we picked up 6 points there. But not just the percentage wise, our absolute operating expense went down quarter to quarter during the same quarter that our revenue went up 25%. So we're really, I think.
How'd you do that?
How'd we do it? We did it by we had been working for several months on instituting some more expense reductions, just in terms of dialing things in. And like, a year ago we took a huge amount of expenses out, but now we're really like we're able to go after and sort of take on the projects and things like that that were like nice to haves. They weren't must haves a year ago. But since things are
Yeah.
clicking and operationally everything's moving along nicely, we're going after some of that further lowish hanging fruit. And we were able to, like I said, bring on, I mean, we brought on 3 stores. Think of all the employees just with those 3 stores and all the other extra activity in Maryland. And we are very, very
So
proud of that.
what's
And like, we feel like we're only in 5 states right now. Like, wait till we get to the scale and the size of some of the other much larger operators. Like, if we're at 27% EBITDA margins here, like we think there's even further gas in the tank in terms of driving better
That's what I was going
margins.
to say. So what's next? I mean, you guys are firing in Michigan. You're obviously firing in New Jersey and Maryland. I'm assuming PA is where the next focus is going to be to drive growth if and when we get the adult use conversion in that market.
Yeah, but PA actually, we mentioned on the call, PA was up 10%. Our retail was up 10% sequentially. And I think our wholesale also was up 10%. I'm sorry, not sequentially, year over year. It was
Okay.
up. It was also up sequentially. I think wholesale was up like 20% sequentially, and our retail stores were up like 8.8. But they were each up 10% year over year. We are back to Pennsylvania growing. Now it's not. It's nothing compared to what it's going to be once rec turns on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it feels good to be. We're operating way under capacity in Pennsylvania just because the market won't support sort of that much capacity. We would be building inventory, but the great thing is at this much lower capacity, we were able to drive sort of company average margins, figure in the low 50s, and grow
Yeah.
again.
So what are you attributing? I mean, what are you attributing to this growth and this affinity with the consumer? I mean, is it brand power? Is it your guys' marketing? I mean, because you guys seem to be going into these markets and just kicking ass into these adult use markets.
Yeah,
And
I think
whatever the
it's
TerrAscend sauce is, it's working.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. It's a lot of the stuff. It's about the whole approach we've taken with the deep and not wide. It's like if you're competing, I've always felt like even MSOs competing against mom and pops that are in one state.
Yeah.
Those mom and pops know so much more about what's going on. They got their brothers driving by the store at midnight and see somebody doing something or whatever. Those are all the things that you lose when you're in multiple states or you're more of a big corporate entity. But even along the spectrum of that, like how is some other company that's competing in 10 or 15 or 20 states, like, it's got to be harder for them to compete with us if we're operating in 5
Yeah.
states. I mean, we're just really focused, and we've got the benefit also of that now being in those 5 states. It gives us the experience, the SOPs, the expertise, we mentioned on the call, our yields in Jersey are up like 50%
Wow.
year to date, like versus January this year. That was like it was like a virtual, we've been talking about doing a CapEx spend there and spending about $10 million. And we thought it would add about 70% to our flower capacity. But we got almost all of that through what we call our virtual expansion, which means we didn't spend any money and we just got the yields up. So,
Well, we look forward to
those are the
seeing
kind
it.
of things we want to roll out everywhere.
You
Yeah, we
touched
look
on the
forward to
call.
seeing the facility next week.
Actually, that's gonna be fun. You touched on a Schedule 3 plan in the call. Do you want to elaborate on what that meant?
Just we're talking more and more about, like obviously when you're talking through strategy and then even budgeting and forecasting and all that, you got to take into account the good and the bad that might happen, and so that you're ready for it. And we think that there's a good chance that that we get a rescheduling decision here by the end of the year, and that really changes everything, not just for us, for the whole industry, but for us. Figure this quarter we would have had I forgot what it was, $11-ish million less in tax liability. So if and when that happens, we're gonna, when you got good cash flow, you have so many options in terms of driving shareholder value. We could buy back stock if we feel like the stock still doesn't reflect the value, especially of all that extra cash flow. We could take a chunk of that, $11-ish million a quarter and put it towards a buyback. We can use it towards M&A. I mean, still in the environment we're in, and I think it would still be even, post a decision if we're moving relatively quickly, like that cash component, the more cash you can put up, the more it buys down. This is like, I'm like being sort of facetious here, but it's like if you're offering somebody $20 million in stock, you can offer them, $8 million in cash or something like that.
Take it.
I think it's
so we could do
important
that. There's so much. There's a lot of stuff we could do with more
the
cash.
conversation we bring up Schedule 3 is the fact that, look, is it going to happen? You can never say anything's for sure, but many people believe it won't happen. So cautiously optimistic, as we say. But listen, I know you got to run. You got a couple minutes. I do want to ask, some of your expense reductions, is some of that, would you say, is attributed to staying at Treasure Island at MJ Biz versus the posh Cosmopolitan?
dude, we're not even staying at Treasure Island. I want to pull up my calendar. Wait, you can't see me. I want to tell you the name of the dump that we're staying at. I can't find it.
You're not staying at the Flamingo, are you?
No, I think that would be fancy. I've heard of the Flamingo. This was like Tuscan Delight or Tuscany something. I don't know. I'll let you guys know.
I texted him the other day. I said, dude, I'm trying to find a hotel room because they're over $1,000. And I'm just like, do you have any like rooms blocked that we could get a group rate? And he was just like responded by saying, you don't want to stay where I'm staying. And I was shocked to hear, but needless to say, there's the expense reductions.
It got a very high rating on Expedia.
Did it?
So, not so many stars, but a very high rating by the people who actually stayed at the hotel. And it was like, it was like $200 a night instead of like $1,000 or whatever those other. Prices are crazy. Yeah,
maybe we should do a podcast in your bedroom.
As long as I don't got anybody else like Ziad trying to. I'm sure the room is like a closet.
Yeah, which room do you want? Smoking or more smoking? But anyway.
I joked with Ziad earlier today that also to drive further OpEx reductions, that him and I are sharing a room.
Oh boy!
So he laughed. He's pretty sure I'm joking, but I'm gonna keep it going for a little longer.
That's hilarious. Well, tell Ziad, Keith, we say hi. Any plans for this evening in Miami?
Ziad wants to go out and do karaoke.
Oh boy!
So,
there's a good karaoke bar at 1-800-LUCKY in Wynwood. They've got
told me about it.
Yep. Yeah, they've got a hidden karaoke room right in the back. It's awesome.
We want videos, brother. Put that stuff on social media. Listen, thanks for checking in. Appreciate the last notice, but congrats obviously on the news today, and keep the momentum going. We look forward to seeing you later this month in Vegas.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir. See you soon.
Jason.
Bye.
He seems very happy, and why not, right?
I mean, they put up a hell of a quarter. It's obviously not one of these 9-digit like mega quarters like you're seeing from some of the larger MSOs, but I mean they're kicking ass.
Yeah.
They're kicking ass, and they're double-digit growth. Yeah. That's what you want to see.
God, I love you, Mitch. You're really good. Look at those. Look at that. That's impressive.
Yeah.
89.
That is very impressive. Revenue, and by the way, Canuck, we went over the TrueLeaf earnings in detail this morning on the Spaces. You can get that on Twitter. It was recorded.
Yeah. So log on to our Twitter account at the Dales Report. Okay, we don't want to keep you guys because I know there's an incredible Thursday night football game between the Bears and Panthers. So I think we're probably going to get more ratings on this podcast than we will the NFL will get. But last thing I wanted to touch on is Ohio, Ben. It was outlined yesterday in our podcast. It became the 24th state in the country to legalize adult use cannabis. And a study came out today outlining that this announcement will add $260 million to the Ohio economy, a state that I think badly needs it. Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. It needs every state needs a surplus budget because they're all budget deficit for the most part. So the study estimated that 190 million in tax revenue would be brought through the collection of taxes through recreational cannabis, and they derived this research from past study of past markets in Colorado and so forth. And but they do have some negative drawbacks as too. They expect a reduction of 1% in productivity. I guess some people on the old GM lines not going to work or whatnot. But overall, they project a net benefit, 260 million in taxes, and I think on the high end it could actually go much higher than that. So they actually use conservative estimates, but you can see the potential there once rec goes live and it's expanded throughout the state. We're talking 9-figure annualized tax revenue to the state coffers.
Yeah. Also, I think it's important to note that Governor DeWine, the governor of Ohio, who he wasn't pleased about issue 2 passing, but he did say and reinforce that he is not going to mess with the bill. Ohioans want adult use cannabis.
Yeah.
Ohioans are going to be having adult use cannabis. However, he does want to amend issue 2 to a certain degree, as I had no idea that issue 2 actually contains language where if you're a proprietor of a restaurant, of a bar, of a arcade, you can actually permit cannabis consumption on premises.
Really?
It's at your discretion.
Oh,
Yeah. So I think he's going to change that.
yeah.
Yeah. I think he's gonna change that language, because that was one of the things he said he wanted to address, just because he wanted to take the general public into account. But also he wants to revise the language around advertisements and how cannabis relates to kids, which that's actually something that I agree with.
So that would open up it sounds like that
yeah.
would open up the
not consumption lounge
cannabis lounges if the rules.
So yes and no. I don't think you can consume it, but I don't think you can purchase and consume at the same place. If I had to guess with the language. So I guess it's a working title as far as issue 2 goes, but yeah, it was kids and the consumption language, and that's it.
Yeah. What is some of
He's
the
gonna let it be.
advertising that's allowed besides packaging in some of these states like Ohio?
I mean, dude, think about when we land in Las Vegas. There's more out of home advertising for cannabis than strip clubs now.
I know.
It's on every taxi, it's on every strip club, it's on every street corner.
It's on billboards, everything. Highway.
Yeah. Florida, it's not. But obviously we're not adult use. California, I'm pretty sure they allow out of home advertising.
See the out of home going into LAX.
Yeah.
What's the I forget the name of the company years ago. They got the domain. It was and the number, but that's everywhere. Trying to think who that was again. Is that Sturgis guy?
Yeah, Sturgis Carbon. It was
what's the name of that company?
It was M7.
No, MJ Freeway. Manifest 7.
Manifest 7.
Yeah, Manifest 7.
A lot of empty promises on that one. Not a memorable stock. It went to.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Tons of empty promises.
Yeah, from a personal point, nice guy, but it's unfortunate what happened there.
When it comes to Ohio, hopefully we can. Hopefully Kevin Sabat is watching, or somebody gives him a clip of this, and he
speaking of
like DeWine's example, just leave cannabis the fuck alone, Kevin.
Speaking of my guy Kevin,
unblock people voted for it because I think he suggested when he put out a tweet. We actually retweeted it because. Yeah, we want to be impartial, and he basically wanted to circumvent the free will of Ohioans, by taking this to legislative route or whatever, lawfare. And I'm just like, okay, this is what the people voted for. It was a simple majority to pass. Leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
No governor. Yeah, no governor's going against the will of 53% of the people.
Right.
Also, Kevin Sabat blocked me on Twitter. It finally happened. Stop being a child, Kevin, and unblock me. I actually enjoy going back and forth with you and listening to your senseless dribble on trying to reverse everything. But it's good. Kevin Sabat just gets steamrolled daily by the regulatory changes of the cannabis industry in the United States.
You've become a man. So, and I love what Don...
He's on
Shout out to Don Murphy as well. I love what he did. He got blocked by Kevin Sabat probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. And what did he do? He did the best thing ever. If you go to his Twitter thread, on his image on his feed, it's like the Kevin Sabat blocked him. He put that as his image on his feed.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just don't understand. That guy's got to be talking to himself at this point.
Yeah. Well,
Like he blocks everybody, but I will wear it as a badge of honor. I guess it means that I'm legitimate. So
hey,
I'm now blocked by Kevin.
I'm a media guy. So at the end of the day, it's like, in all fairness, he's got a voice, he's got an opinion. So, Kevin, if you're listening, I'm not going to sway one way or another. If you want to come on and have a debate, come on. Like,
Yeah,
have
I
a
think
conversation.
he's a necessary evil. And if there's some jerk off that's going to run around trying to make sure we're all wrong, at least he's entertaining.
Well, that just killed the invite.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be nice.
I'm
nice.
trying to warm this up. Jesus, buddy.
I'm being cordial. This is me being cordial.
I got blocked 4 months ago, so I became
Yeah.
a man that day. I
Alright.
came of age.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, look, Yoshi in the comments. Kevin blocked him. I bet you there's probably 10 people on
Yeah.
this stream right now in the audience that he's blocked.
20.
Marcus Smith writes, for a long time, Boris even said he was focused on growth, so I'm not overly concerned about the not so great numbers. All that will come once 280E goes away. Curaleaf will be huge profitable. So needless to say, we have some very interesting.
I wouldn't bet against. I mean, I wouldn't bet. I think that's a solid point. I wouldn't bet against that.
Yeah,
it's the earnings release and the numbers are not saying that right now, but I would not bet against that. Just knowing the brands and the positioning and the markets and just the overall strategy of the business. But we need to see that.
Comment on Curaleaf from me is that people are talking about the big net loss or whatever, sizable net loss, but all that goes away with 280E. They're either in the black or on the cusp of being in the black.
See, even Lucifer was saboted.
Yeah. But I'll have to say, with Curaleaf, with TrueLeaf as well, with probably Cresco, we got to get more growth back in the business.
Yep.
People complain about the bad equities and how they blame short sellers, they blame this and that. But you got to remember, the growth story has not unfolded the way it was supposed to 3 or 4 years ago, and that's part of the reason why we're sitting where we are, because that growth never happened. You could say price compression, you could say whatever. Curaleaf, they opened X number of stores and the revenue went down by 7 million.
Yeah.
TrueLeaf, same dynamic. So we got to get growth back into the sector, and then with 280E, and then we can have a very good price action profile, I think, going forward.
Yeah. This is Into the Wire, where we highlight all the biggest announcements in cannabis today here in our segment here on the TDR Traded Black podcast on the Benzenga Television Network. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Benjamin A. Smith and Anthony Varrell. Great show, guys. Mitch, when you said, say what? Maybe you should join Mr. Wild in some karaoke tonight. Good voice there you got, brother. No response.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Always ready. Say what?
That's good. That is really good,
actually.
Makiko writes, high hopes and patience for Canopy. And I think we're all in the same boat. All right, guys, that wraps it up. I don't think we're going to dive too much into daily movers. We'll let you guys go. We're 45 minutes in, but I do want to highlight one thing though before you go. Anthony, you'd mentioned last month, if memory serves me correctly, I think you mentioned Ethereum in one of your daily movers about a month ago, and it's been up over 90% since then.
That is incorrect.
Chainlink. Sorry, my apologies. Chainlink. And then yesterday you outlined Ethereum, and since then it's up over 30%.
Ethereum is up 10% today. It's up about 18% on the week. Yeah, right. It's coiling up. I mean, Solana dumped a decent amount today. Bitcoin cracked 37K intraday. I mean, crypto's starting to move. I've been on the right side of a lot of these calls, but I mean, it's kind of their safe place.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, ETH, Chainlink, Solana. The writing's on the wall with these ETFs that are opening up. Crypto's going to catch a bid, and when crypto catches a bid, we've all seen what happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, I actually bought Ethereum today, in like the 20-30 range. I'll probably buy some more and watch what the price action goes. But I mean, it has, like I said on Monday, it has underperformed its peers by a significant degree.
Interesting. Well, Ben, I know you mentioned in our show notes that you're watching Bitcoin. JP Morgan, one of their analysts, basically casts doubt on the recent crypto market surge, describing it as overdone. You believe that? You agree with that?
It's hard to know. I'm not the resident cryptocurrency expert, but I'm always looking for a good trade. And because Bitcoin has rallied over 30% over the past month or so, I'm looking to see if, with sentiment, I'm always monitoring that to see if there's some sort of, upside or downside play. With JP Morgan, it's hard to know because Jamie Dimon has been a famous bear. and he was bearish a while ago. He might have changed his tune in more recent times, but their analysts believe that that the ETF move is overdone. They believe instead of attracting new capital, these you could see moves this capital shift into other Bitcoin products instead of Bitcoin itself. I don't know. Perhaps Anthony can comment on it, but if there's a move to the downside, if sentiment shifts, hopefully I can capitalize on a good futures trade, or perhaps trade some of the miners for a quick play. So I'm just monitoring right now. Price action is still way too strong for me to short.
Yeah, I'm curious to get your feedback on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shorting, but I think that there's going to be major movement in Bitcoin. I mean, the capital inflows are going to be aggressive and swift.
Yeah,
if and when these ETFs open up.
Is JP Morgan credible? Like, do you view them as credible given that Jamie Dimon's history? And
I don't trust anything that comes out of JP Morgan in regards to crypto, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
they talk their book. I'm going to go with fundamentals, and these ETFs open up. That is like I said, that is a very aggressive capital inflow that's going to come into the blockchain ecosystem very, very fast. It's going to cause the prices to go up to the upside. I don't know where it's going to go. I'm not going to sit here and say 100K Bitcoin, 250K Bitcoin. I hate being one of those guys, but the number's going to go up.
Yeah.
If these ETFs are activated and approved and live. And if BlackRock starts automatically allocating capital to Bitcoin in everybody's 401ks on a monthly basis, you know what that's going to do to the price.
Yeah. Love your level-headed analysis, Ben. You're the reason why I watch the show. There you go, buddy.
It's nice to have fans out there.
Yeah. And we value your opinion. You do a lot of research, and you guys are great at going back and forth and looking at things from different perspectives. Anthony's, basically focuses on a lot of the fundamental stuff, and Ben more on the technical analysis. So it's a good combination. I really appreciate everybody for logging on and showing support towards this podcast. Because look, I worked in mainstream television. This is my whole dream to launch this. And the whole idea is to just present great thought leaders, including Ben, Anthony, and everybody within our network, to give you just more information that's helpful for you, because it's all about you guys. Gents, enjoy that Thursday night football. Big takeaways, I think, after today's show. Just to recap, Terassend keeps humming. Curaleaf, I would best describe their latest earnings as stable. Canopy, as much as it's been challenging times in the past, it appears that they're riding the ship. And you guys outlined just to be watchful and mindful of Bitcoin, because we think that still has some upside. And a really good interview that we're actually going to post next week that Anthony and I had earlier today with Mark Yusko. What a smart character.
He's my favorite guy to talk to.
Oh,
I mean,
it's an hour and 8 minutes. It's an hour and 8 minutes. Like, I think we got 2 questions in, but the guy is.
I was just going to say, how much did you talk out of that hour and 8 minutes? He probably.
I actually got a lot in today. I got a decent amount in today, but I mean, it went everywhere. I mean, we were talking about the World Economic Forum, and it was an action-packed history lesson, to be honest.
Yeah.
In macroeconomics, crypto, and tech. We were talking about tech VC for probably 25 minutes.
How they made a lot of money back in the financial crisis in 2008 when they shorted.
Mark actually shorted the subprimes with Michael Burry.
Yeah. Hanging out in Nevada and basically saying, looking around these neighborhoods and people buying homes that were at X amount of prices. And he's like, these people can't afford it. I want to make money. Boom.
Yeah.
They start shorting, but the rest is history. Anyways, gents, this has been great. A lot of on tap. We'll have another live stream tomorrow at 4:10. This is the TDR Trade Black podcast on the Benzenga Television Network. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll check back in with you all, everybody, tomorrow.
Do this again tomorrow.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video with your network, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.